Snow fell softly, each flake a delicate whisper from the heavens. It blanketed our little town in a pristine white, transforming familiar streets into a winter wonderland. The air was crisp, the silence almost unnerving, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Christmas lights twinkled, a stark contrast to the growing darkness at the heart of our festivities, casting a warm glow on the snow-covered ground. I watched it all from my window, a sense of foreboding settling deep in my gut, as if the snow was a harbinger of something yet to come. This year, the festive cheer felt different, tainted with an unspoken fear that seemed to seep into every corner of our town. Our town of Havenwood was always quiet, a place where time moved slowly, and life was simple. Nestled deep in the countryside, we were a place time seemed to forget, surrounded by woods that stood as silent sentinels. Life here was simple, predictable, unchanging, a comforting routine that we all cherished. But this December, something had shifted, an undercurrent of unease that we couldn't quite place. The air was thick with it, this unsettling stillness that felt more like anticipation than peace, as if the town itself was waiting for something. The snow, usually a welcome sight, now felt like a shroud, hiding something sinister beneath its pristine surface, a silent witness to secrets untold. The annual tree lighting ceremony went on as usual, a tradition that brought the community together, even in these uncertain times. Kids were bundled up in puffy coats, their laughter echoing through the square, a fleeting reminder of innocence and joy. Carols played softly from the speakers, but the melodies couldn't drown out the whispers that followed me everywhere, whispers of worry and fear, whispers of the missing Miller family, a topic that had become the town's dark secret. They were gone, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that no one dared to speak of openly. Their house, usually brimming with life and the aroma of gingerbread, stood eerily silent, a stark reminder of their absence. The lights were still twinkling on their porch, a cruel reminder of the family that was once there, now just a memory. Nobody spoke of it openly, but the fear was palpable, a shared anxiety that connected us all in our silent dread. It hung in the air, as tangible as the snowflakes falling on my outstretched hand, a cold reminder of the unknown that loomed over us. The woods, usually a place of solace, now seemed to harbor shadows that whispered secrets to the wind. We gathered in the square, seeking comfort in numbers, but the unease was inescapable, a shadow that clung to us all. The church bell rang out, its chime a solemn reminder of the passage of time, each toll echoing the unanswered questions that haunted us. Paths that once led to familiar places now seemed to lead into the unknown, each step crunching in the snow, a reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead. As dawn broke, the first light hitting the snow, it felt like a new beginning, yet the shadows of the past lingered, refusing to be forgotten. My name is Thomas, and I've lived in Havenwood my entire life. This small, snow-covered town has always been my home, a place where everyone knows everyone else, and secrets are as rare as a warm day in winter. I knew every creak of every floorboard in my old Victorian house, every twist and turn of the snow-covered lanes. The familiar sounds and sights were a comfort, a reminder of the stability and predictability of life in Havenwood. This town held no secrets, or so I thought. The quiet nights and the friendly faces made it seem like nothing could ever go wrong here. But the miller's disappearance had stirred something dark and ancient, something that whispered of forgotten legends and things best left buried. It was as if the very soul of Havenwood had been disturbed, and the shadows seemed to grow longer and darker with each passing day. The Millers were good people. John, a carpenter with calloused hands and a kind smile, always ready to lend a hand or share a laugh. His wife Mary, known for her delicious apple pies and her warm hospitality, was the heart of their home. Her kitchen was always filled with the comforting aroma of baked goods, a place where everyone felt welcome. Their two kids, little Emily and mischievous Ethan, were the darlings of Havenwood. Their laughter was a common sound in the town, a reminder of the innocence and joy that still existed in the world. Their disappearance wasn't just a tragedy, it was an anomaly that chilled me to the bone. It was as if a piece of the town's soul had been ripped away, leaving a gaping wound that refused to heal. Sheriff Davies, a man who'd seen it all in his 40 years of service, seemed strangely out of his depth. His usual confidence was replaced by a haunted look, as if he was grappling with something beyond his understanding. He kept mumbling about outsiders and city trouble, but his words rang hollow. It was clear that he was as lost as the rest of us, searching for answers in a place where none seemed to exist. Havenwood was too isolated for outsiders. The roads leading in and out of town were often impassable in the winter, cutting us off from the rest of the world, and the Millers were too loved to have made any enemies. They were the kind of people who brought the community together, who made Havenwood feel like a family. The silence from the authorities was more unsettling than any explanation. It was as if they were afraid to acknowledge the darkness that had crept into our town, afraid to face the reality of what had happened. It allowed fear to fester, to grow with each passing day. The once lively streets were now filled with creeping shadows, and the air was thick with a sense of dread. The townsfolk, usually so quick to gossip, now spoke in hushed tones, their faces drawn and pale. The disappearance of the Millers had cast a long shadow over Havenwood, one that seemed to grow darker with each passing day. The snow continued to fall, covering Havenwood in a thick blanket of white, as if trying to hide the darkness beneath. But no amount of snow could bury the fear that had taken root in our hearts, burying our secrets and our fears beneath its pristine surface. The once comforting silence of the snow was now a reminder of the unknown, of the darkness that lay just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. The old folks at the local diner spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously towards the windows. Their voices were barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might summon the very thing they feared. They talked about the legend, the one their grandparents used to tell them. Stories passed down through generations, each retelling adding a new layer of dread and mystery, a chilling tale of a vengeful spirit, a being of winter and shadows that haunted these woods. It was said to be a creature born of ice and darkness, its presence heralded by the coldest of winters. Every 50 years, it would awaken from its slumber, claiming souls for its own. The spirit was relentless, its hunger insatiable, leaving a trail of fear and sorrow in its wake. I tried to dismiss it as folklore, the ramblings of old people clinging to forgotten superstitions. After all, how could such a tale be true in this modern age? But deep down a seed of unease had been planted. The more I heard, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that there was some truth to their words. The year of the Millers' disappearance marked exactly 50 years since the last unexplained vanishing in Havenwood. It was a chilling coincidence that was hard to ignore. My grandfather's best friend, a woodsman named Old Man Hemlock, had disappeared without a trace. He was a man of the forest, someone who knew every tree and trail, yet he vanished as if swallowed by the earth. His cabin was found in disarray, the fire still burning in the hearth, but of Hemlock himself, there was no sign. It was as if he had simply stepped out and never returned. The legend spoke of strange occurrences in the weeks leading up to the spirit's awakening, odd happenings that defied explanation and left the townsfolk on edge. Flocks of crows gathering in the dead of night, their caws echoing through the silent woods. It was an omen, a sign that something was amiss, an unnatural stillness in the air, as if the world itself were holding its breath. The silence was heavy, oppressive, and filled with an unspoken dread. And most unsettling of all, the appearance of strange symbols etched into the bark of ancient trees, symbols that seemed to writhe and shift under the moonlight. They were unlike anything anyone had ever seen, their meaning a mystery. I found myself walking the same snowy paths my grandfather used to, my breath misting in the frigid air. Each step felt like a journey into the past, retracing the steps of those who had come before me. The woods were eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the crunch of snow beneath my boots. It was a silence that seemed to amplify every sound, making even the smallest noise feel significant. And then I saw it, etched into the bark of an ancient oak, the same symbol that had haunted my grandfather's stories. It was unmistakable, a mark of the spirit's presence. A cold dread gripped my heart, squeezing the air from my lungs. The realization hit me like a wave. The legend was not just a story, it was a warning. The legend was real, and it had already begun. The spirit was awake, and the cycle of fear and disappearance was set to repeat once more. The whispers on the wind were not just tales of old, but a harbinger of what was to come. The more I delved into the legend, the more disturbed I became. The townsfolk, reluctant at first, started sharing fragments of their family histories, piecing together a horrifying tapestry. The disappearances always followed the same pattern. A family vanished without a trace, their homes left seemingly untouched, yet imbued with an unnatural stillness. My grandfather's journal, tucked away in the attic, became my obsession. He had meticulously documented everything he knew about the legend, collecting stories, dates, and even sketches of the strange symbols he'd found carved into the trees. His words, penned in a faded, spidery script, spoke of a darkness that chilled me to the bone. He wrote of the spirit as a being of immense power, fueled by fear and despair. He described its eyes as cold and empty, reflecting the endless winter of its existence. The more I learned, the more I understood the fear that had gripped Havenwood. This wasn't just a local legend, it was a terrifying truth that had haunted my family for generations. I felt a responsibility to uncover the truth, to protect my town from the darkness that threatened to consume it. But fear was a powerful motivator. It gnawed at the edges of my resolve, whispering doubts into the silent corners of my mind.